You ever find yourself reading about some weird, unexplainable event and saying, "Wait, that was real?" It's funny how, in a world where science can cure diseases and send rovers to Mars, there are still medical mysteries that stump the experts. Today, we're highlighting 4 true cases that make doctors bite their nails and historians argue endlessly. These aren't your typical "I had weird rash" stories. These are real-life conundrums that defy tidy answers. There's a brilliant astrophysicist who died under suspicious circumstances in Antarctica. There's an iconic writer, Edgar Allan Poe, whose final days were as eerie as his novels. A jockey who literally won a race after he was gone. And yes, a wave of refugee deaths that struck fear into entire communities. They remind us that life doesn't always conform to logic or reason. Number 1. The mysterious death of Rodney Marks. Let's start at the end of the Earth, Antarctica. In 2000, Rodney Marks, a bright Australian astrophysicist, was stationed at the South Pole to work on cutting-edge telescope projects. He wasn't a lonely figure either. He had friends, colleagues, a fiancée, and a community sharing the surreal experience of research in -80 degrees Fahrenheit weather. It sounds like a thrilling, if chilly, adventure crossing icy tundra to analyze the night sky from one of the planet's most extreme locations. Things took a terrifying turn when Rodney suddenly found himself short of breath while walking between station buildings. Initially, everyone thought it might be a respiratory infection, or maybe the start of a nasty flu. Over the next 36 hours, his condition deteriorated shockingly fast, from struggling to breathe, to doubling over in pain, to going into cardiac arrest. By the time the station doctor realized the gravity of his symptoms, it was already too late. Rodney Marks passed away far from home, surrounded by endless ice. Because of the Antarctic winter, his body couldn't be flown out for months. Once it finally reached a medical examiner in New Zealand, the autopsy pointed to methanol poisoning. Now, methanol is definitely not your party drink. It's often used as an industrial solvent or a lab cleaner. Ingestion can lead to blindness, coma, and death. But how and why did it end up in Rodney's system? Did he unknowingly consume it, or did someone poison him? Multiple nations got involved: Australia, New Zealand, and the US, but the investigation hit legal, jurisdictional, and diplomatic roadblocks. Even decades later, we still don't know what really happened to Rodney Marks beneath those southern skies. Number 2. Edgar Allan Poe's strange final days. Shift gears to mid-19th century Baltimore and say hello to the master of macabre, Edgar Allan Poe. This is the man who gave the world The Telltale Heart and The Raven. So we already expect darkness, but nobody could predict how bizarre his final days would become. In October 1849, passersby found Poe wandering Baltimore's streets, looking lost, filthy, and disoriented. He was rambling nonsensically, and oddly wearing clothes that weren't even his. One newspaper employee recognized him and rushed him to get medical help. Poe drifted in and out of delirium for days, unable to explain why he was in such a sorry state. Then he died, leaving behind more questions than answers. One doctor cited congestion of the brain, which sounds fancy but could mean stroke, hemorrhage, or almost any severe neurological issue at the time. Another theory blames alcohol withdrawal, pointing to Poe's shaky history with drinking. Then there's the rabies hypothesis. His apparent inability to swallow water could align with the classic hydrophobia symptom. Number 3. Frank Hayes, the jockey who won after dying. Next up, a story that feels like someone's urban legend, except it truly happened. Meet Frank Hayes, a 22-year-old horse trainer living in 1920s New York. His dream: to become a jockey. One day, opportunity knocked in the form of a horse named Sweet Kiss. These races often hinge on a few pounds, so Frank decided to shed 12 pounds in a single day to meet racing weight, a strategy that can wreak havoc on your heart and body. Still, race day arrived at Belmont Park, and the excitement was as high as the summer temperatures. Frank mounted Sweet Kiss, the starting gun fired, and the pair rocketed down the track. Even from the stands, folks could see that Frank and Sweet Kiss were in the zone, clearing hurdles and pulling ahead of the competition. The announcer's voice rose to a crescendo: Sweet Kiss takes the lead. They crossed the finish line first, securing that underdog victory. Cheers erupted, hats flew in the air until people noticed that Frank was slumped over in the saddle. Spectators first assumed he was clowning around, maybe celebrating his big win in dramatic fashion. But when he didn't move, a hush fell. Rushing to his side, the track's doctor quickly concluded that Frank had died sometime during that final dash. Whether it was a heart attack, a catastrophic electrolyte imbalance, or a cardiac arrhythmia brought on by severe dehydration, we'll never know exactly. But it stands on record Frank Hayes is the only jockey to win a race, after his own death, an unsettling distinction if there ever was one. Number 4. The Hmong refugees and fatal nightmares. In the 1970s, many Hmong people from Laos sought refuge in the United States, hoping to escape the turbulence of civil war. They arrived in various American cities, facing the daunting challenge of starting over in a land whose language and customs were entirely foreign. Yet, as they tried to rebuild their lives, a mysterious string of nighttime deaths struck these communities. By and large, the victims were young Hmong men, average about 33 years old, who showed no signs of poor health by day. Then, suddenly, they'd pass away in their sleep. Autopsies offered no clues, no weapon, no poison, no disease. Doctors were puzzled. Witness accounts described victims gasping in the night, sometimes thrashing, and then becoming still. It's been termed sudden arrhythmic death syndrome, or, in broader regions of Southeast Asia, Bangungut. One explanation posits that chronic stress, fear, and trauma built up from war and cultural upheaval might have triggered fatal heart arrhythmias during intense nightmares. In Hmong tradition, there's a deep belief in spirits and spiritual warfare, where nightmares aren't just random visuals in your head but possible supernatural encounters. At the time, some Hmong families even tried spiritual interventions, inviting shamans to protect their loved ones at night. Curiously, this lethal phenomenon faded in subsequent generations. Did the second wave of refugees adapt more smoothly? Did the nightmares relent once people became more comfortable in their new environment? Honestly, nobody knows for sure. Medical science calls it a stress-induced cardiac event, but that label leaves a big question mark about the precise mechanism at work. This story stands as a haunting reminder that the line between psychological stress and physical tragedy can sometimes be perilously thin, even lethal. At the end of the day, perhaps that's why we're drawn to these mysteries. They make us wonder if, despite all our knowledge, there's still a little corner of the universe that remains beyond our comprehension. And strangely enough, that makes life and history a lot more interesting. What do you think? Comment below. I want to know your opinion about this matter. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like button. And also don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more of these kinds of videos. Thanks for watching.